Okay, the plan for this lesson takes place essentially in two parts. Over the first couple of days, what we're going to do is to take the first day and build this catapult together in our groups. So you'll have all of the materials. We'll go to this website and it'll tell us basically how it is that we can build this catapult. On the next day, we'll come back and we'll run the experiment using this catapult. Hopefully, if we've all done it properly, it'll look like this when we actually test them. And what we'll do is use the catapults to run an experiment where we'll launch pennies. We'll measure how far the pennies go when we launch them. We'll do a bunch of trials between 10 and 20 and then use that data to find the mean, the median, and the mode. In that time, obviously, we'll learn how to calculate those things, and then we'll calculate them using that data. The other thing we're going to do is to learn how to display that data to make different charts. Something called the stem and leaf plot, a box and whisker plot, something else called the histogram. And once we do all of those things, we should be able to draw some conclusions about that data. The second thing we're going to do is to ask a question. The question is, can our lives be represented using numbers? And so we're going to get together in our groups and we're going to ask ourselves 3 or 4 questions that we feel best summarize the things that we do in our lives. Once we do that, we'll make a survey. So the survey is going to be designed to ask those questions. The questions here in the sample are: how many minutes does it take you to travel to school? How many text messages did you write? How many Facebook friends do you have? These are things that are designed to sort of summarize the things we do on a day-to-day basis. You should ask between 3, maybe 4, or even 5 questions, but certainly not more than that. So we'll take time in class to create these surveys, and then we'll also take time to answer everyone's survey. We'll come back the next day, and once everyone answers our surveys, it's going to put the results in a spreadsheet like this automatically for us. Now that's very useful because what it allows us to do is to calculate things like the mean, the median, and the mode pretty easily using the calculating tools inside the spreadsheet. So once we do all of those calculations, we'll also make the charts that we saw before. We should end up with something that looks like this, in which we have basically a summary of each of these questions that we're asking. We're going to take those summaries and put them into what's called a VoiceThread project, in which we essentially summarize the results of our survey, and we asked ourselves the question whether or not this is a good representation of our lives. If it is, then that's great. If it's not, what are the things that we can do in order to make it a better representation of our lives? And so that's essentially the summary of the unit. In between those things, what we're going to do is to spend some time reading about measures of central tendency, how we can use it, and also how we may end up misusing it. Another project that has the same idea is this web inquiry that we're going to do one day for homework. Now, this project in particular is going to show us not only how to use these measures of tendency, but also how we can misuse them. And so that's going to be something that's important to us, especially once we do our final project. We're going to summarize all of this in 2 ways. One is the VoiceThread that we already talked about. The second is going to be in an essay. Now your essay will hopefully inform the VoiceThread because you're going to write the essay first and then turn the essay basically into this presentation. At the same time, what I want you to do is to look at other people's presentations, the presentations of the other group members, of the other groups rather in the class, and comment on those to see if their questions were interesting, if you feel like if you put your questions and their questions together, if you got a better summary, things like that. So that's essentially the outline of the lesson. You can get a more in-depth outline over on the right side of the page, and any of the links that you need are also here on the page as well. So I hope you have fun doing this project.